The recording. Welcome to the Gnostic Rebellion. Today we're speaking with Ray Crist, founder of Shamanic Journeys, which touts a modern shamanism and presents a 9-month intensive training program. There's retreats to Peru and to Greece that he and his wife Nina also sponsor. We'll introduce him in a moment, but first I'd like you to take a look at the description to this video below, and there's a donate link that comes up immediately. Please just hit that donate link right now and help us with our historic church, the first Gnostic church on the American continents, fully owned and operated. And of course, your donation is tax deductible. While you do that, we'll extend this simple blessing. May wisdom and divine providence increase the unique genius of our congregation and bring us to health, wealth, and increase of days. So, again, we have Ray Chris. He states the Jaguar Path is dedicated to personal awakening and the art of living consciously, rooted in ancient Greek ideas and the ancient Greek idea, rather, of F Zin. Did I pronounce that
Correct.
properly? Ray, please introduce yourself and tell us about F Zin.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor. Evzin is an ancient Greek word idea that basically translates into full potential, living your life. And optimal, rather, the direct translation is optimal living. So I take that and I've traveled around the world and I've discovered that it's not only the ancient Greeks that talk about Evsine, but there are several schools through the planet that are dedicated into understanding how we can reach that optimal living. When we go into China, for example, we find the Taoists who call this Wu Wei, the art of doing without doing. The art of flow, in other words, living a life that flows. We go to India and we see the yogis that talk about ananda, bliss, that I'm living life and I'm not focusing on the suffering, but I'm able to flow in life. And it's the same, and where our school really comes in strong is with the shamans of Peru. When we go into the Andes, we find the shamans, and they talk about this Shuma Kashwe, the great life. And all of these ancient cultures are essentially talking about the same thing. They're all taking a look and seeing that life can be difficult or even suffering. There was these difficulties in life in different ages and different phases of life. And one of the things that I'll have to backtrack and say that originally I wasn't doing this work at all. I personally was a photographer and I was doing fashion and advertisement photography. And my claim to fame as a photographer back then in that previous lifetime was Vogue covers, bulletin boards, and highways in the city here in Athens, in Greece, working for Vogue and for all the magazines and advertisement agencies. And I was at my peak of my career, really having an awesome career and what everyone would agree was a great life. Yet one day I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and I was given a terminal diagnosis and 3 months to live. And I was obviously stopped on my tracks. Everything was going fine. So I'm approaching this world of shamanism through a real pragmatic way of looking at things, because that's not, a lot of people say, shamanism, and I wish I could find another word. This word has been so used, misused, abused.
Well, you
Uh,
talk of your shamanism in Peru, and you seem to have an apprenticeship with Don Francisco Cura Flores. Could you tell us about him? And did I pronounce his name correctly?
you pronounced it wonderfully, and I'll be very happy to say this. So when I got to talk about uh, Don Francisco was here in Greece with me not a couple of weeks ago. This is an ongoing 20-year relationship. We call it apprenticeship, a friendship. It's a life. We're each other's lifeline in so many ways, or we've played an amazing role in each other's life. But first of all, I want to say in many ways, I owe him my life in the sense that he made me change. He brought me into that umak sumak, that understanding of the great life and how to how to have that, how to do that, because we all are in struggle or fighting, or we're always there. There is some kind of struggle, and I'm not saying that struggle ends, but there's a shift and change in how we can view the world. So
Well,
when I was diagnosed, I'll get
you're in
to
a position where you saw a wonderful life professionally, put you in the upper middle class. You were living comfortably,
yeah.
and something came in and interrupted that. Now, uh, I think what has to become important, because if we look at your story of cancer as how you went from, say, the top to the bottom suddenly in a moment, um, we have to be able to see this as something that's available to everyone despite their circumstances. You may be working class, you may not be so comfortable, but you can still live the good life. How would you give that message to people?
Well, I will give it the way that Francisco, Don Francisco himself, offered it to me when I first met him some 20 years ago. I was on my knees and I said, Don Francisco, they've told me that you're a great shaman. Please help me. I am dying. I have a 2-year-old boy back home and I am dying of cancer. And he put his hands on my shoulders and he helped me stand on my feet. He pulled me up and he said, I can't save you, but I can train you how to become a shaman and you could heal yourself. And what I want to say, I'm totally in 100% agreement with you, Paul. That anyone that wants to learn more about the shamanic work can do that. There's nothing needed prior to that. For me, what was needed was need. I, I was in at the end, like you said, the bottom. I think you described it really well, and I wish that people could see this and make the shifts without having to arrive at the bottom. Uh, so
Well,
that's my.
I didn't mean the bottom in quite that way, but
Oh, it
just
was
in
no,
yeah,
it
the
was. It
offshoot,
was
you
everything. It
went
was like a
from.
rug. The rug was pulled from under my feet.
Exactly. And this can happen in so many different ways, not necessarily confined to health issues, right? You could lose the one job you're capable of doing with no way of retooling at a certain age. Um, you can have go through a divorce. You can go through, all sorts of emotional problems, and despite all this, I might only have $5 in my pocket. I'm not going to be able to suddenly take a ride out to Peru and go make a friendship with a shaman, right? So I have to figure out how to get to that inner space on my own. Have you ever heard of Carlos Castaneda? Have you ever worked with any of his ideas?
Yes, of course. That's what led me there. Like, first Carlos Castaneda book fell in my hand when I was 16 years old, and I read all his books. I've studied tensegrity, and I am actually in a course with Clear Green, his company, right now, as we speak. For those of you who may not know Carlos, I'll mention that for your audience that he was an anthropologist who was in UCLA and in 1968 wrote his dissertation on medicinal plants and went to Mexico to work with a medicine man, a plant medicine man, and he got a lot more than a dissertation, as you very well know, Paul. He wrote, I want to say, was it 16 books, and his entire life he created this revolution. Having read those books, to say this, Paul, there was a moment when I was diagnosed that in my whole breakdown of, what do I do? They give me 3 months to live. I had 90 days, 12 weeks. It was like counting the time. And in all that, one of the sentences from one of Carlos's books came up in my head where Don Juan, his teacher, turns around and tells Carlos, when death knocks on your door, change your address. And with that coming into my head, and with the Oracle of Delphi here telling me to leave, this is where I got the cancer. I had to leave the source, which was the city, which was that life that I lived, that high speed, 90 hours of work, huge budget, short deadlines. That stress really took its tax on my system. So yes, I've read Castaneda, and that's what drove me. First, I originally traveled through Mexico, seeking and hoping to find a Don Juan, but it didn't really stick. I found and worked with several shamans, and I have many stories to say and share with amazing people. But where it really clicked for me was when I arrived in Peru and I met Don Francisco. Don Francisco is love and sweetness personified. And so is the whole lineage of the people, the Queros that I work with. So there that. Carlos Castaneda is definitely an inspiration and gave me that. You know, you said something about I might not have $5 to get to the shaman. And there's two routes you can take, especially if you've given a paper that says you're dying in 90 days. You can either say, yes, I will abide to what you're telling me, and this is my only truth, and there's nothing I can do. Or you can take that inspiration, and that inspiration that Francisco gave me was like, he said, I can train you to become a shaman, you can help yourself. And it was the first moment after going to Johns Hopkins, the NIH, having had surgery in the NIH, trying to figure out how people could save me. It was the first time I realized that I have the power. It is really the patient that comes out of that place of dis-ease. Everyone around them, and I'm so grateful to the NIH, to Johns Hopkins, to doctors, nurses, everyone around can help you, but you really at the end are doing the work. And anyone that's been through cancer and survived it will testify to that.
Okay, so now, um, your journey's taking you through Andean shamanic practices, Ayurvedic medicine, modern psychology, yoga, Tai Chi. You mentioned all of this right away. Meditation, the I Ching. It's a unique blend of practices that you claim will sharpen your intuition and magnify your focus and allow you to be fully your authentic self. What I'm interested in is. What is the authentic self? What do you mean by that? Please tell us about this.
Ah. Well, what I discovered was that while I thought that I was really happy and really successful, I realized that my whole body wasn't happy and obviously was not succeeding. So I wasn't being my authentic self. I wasn't living the life that I wanted. I was living on a game with other people. May that be Vogue or big advertisement agencies. There was this whole fake reality, really. And when I talk about the authentic self, I'm really talking about, and what we do in the 9-month training of the Jaguar Path is that we go through a process of several tools, some of which you mentioned. And in that, we're educating ourselves. Like, I don't heal anyone, exactly like Don Francisco didn't heal me, but I train people to look inward. And these tools that we share, some of them are shamanic, some of them are Ayurvedic, some of them come from Chinese medicine. All of it is at heart psychotherapeutic, but it really has an impact on the body, on the nervous system and the endocrine system. The authentic self is the self we may have a glimpse of or kind of remember when we were 5, 6, 7 years old, and you were just looking at the outside world, and you're like running in a grass field or running on a beach, and it was just this awe and this excitement of being. The non-authentic self is the personality, the persona that we create, that we wear as like an onion, layer after layer, that comes in life from the times we've been hurt, when we were traumatized, when our heart is broken, when we get scared. We create all these contracts and these ideas, and all these contracts and ideas are essentially neural pathways. They're networks in the brain that are set. Say, okay, next time someone says, you're not good at what you're doing. I got hurt at school when I was in elementary school. Someone said, you're not good, get out of here. You can't play with us. And then there's this contract, we call it, that says, well, I will always be good and I will always try to impress others. And then you move around life, and that's something you've set forth and is stuck in as a way of thinking. It's almost like a program in your brain.
Well, yeah, so
So,
you say through the school, I remember that healing is not about fixing what is broken, but about bringing light and love to what has been forgotten. So, uh, could you say that we could view this as an exploration into the subconscious being?
oh, absolutely yes, absolutely yes. Because one of my shaman teachers always said, it's like 5% is conscious and 95% is unconscious. That's the way the brain works. This is science today, right? We know this. So he says, my question is, who do you think rules? The 5% or the 95%? And the truth is that we're ruled by our subconscious, which is basically built with all these contracts and all these agreements to protect ourselves from being hurt again. So, in other words, we go around and we have this own personal cage that we say protects us, but we're in the cage, and that's the
So it's a
personality.
conglomerate of protection mechanisms that we put in from older and forgotten incidents in our lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's set forth this program that we work on, and then we say, okay, well, it works for me, so I'm not changing anything. And then when we come across people that are difficult or they bring us what we call red flags, we run away instead of facing things and instead of changing things, instead of
So
looking
here I
deeper
am.
into them.
How do we come to recognize this unconscious conclusion that we've reached? Uh,
Well, I'll tell you what, it takes support. I don't think there's one answer immediately. It takes many tools, and that's why we teach many tools, and that's why the training is 9 months, 9 weekends. We meet one weekend a month. And there's something to that because we go in, and it takes to have the support, to have the tools, to feel that you're held, to feel that you are safe in order to start opening a little bit. And when we open in one place, maybe it doesn't. One tool kind of like, maybe I can't get to that and change that contract. We go through it through another tool and another tool. And along again with that, what we call acceptance, admiration, and affection in a space where all of us together as a cohort, as a community, when we gather that one weekend a month, we all support each other in being and admire each other's authentic self, encourage us. And that's one of the things that many, many students say. It's like, I can't wait to be there because when I'm at the training, that's the place where I'm most just myself. I don't have to think about what I'm going to say or how I'm going to say it. I'm just saying it. We open our vulnerability. We expose those things that we feel difficult with. And we're not shunned about it. We're rather accepted and admired. And that ambience is the ambience of affection. And that's where we
so it
all,
seems to me that I loved your description of the young child, running on the beach. Um, the young child is open. The incidents that will occur in life have not yet happened. And so the young child doesn't have any prefixed trauma to protect against. Um, and so you run open into the world. Now, of course, the world must eventually slam back. You better get married, you better have a good job, you got to make the 2.3 babies and have the 2.3 car garage, right? And so that that takes away, it's the boy becoming the man, they say. It's the girl becoming a woman for that matter. Um, And so we breed respect and maturity from into people that accomplish this and become successful. You could call it the American dream, but I think it happens, everywhere in the world. It's not an unusual place to desire. But the problem is then, I really have to fix myself. I have to be interested in what the world wants and ignore what I want.
Hmm.
So there's that. And so you get to people that are not successful, but yet, do they have the capacity to begin to develop these tools? Um, does someone really need to have, certain gifts or a certain circumstance in life? How can this person live in the modern world?
This is all so well said. So one of the biggest things is that the American dream, you said it well, because it was an American dream, and it moved to the other parts of the world also. Um, what it really focuses on is all those things that you said, the three-car garage, the this and that, the other, the white picket fence, etc. The essence is that when we are born, when we're 2 or 3 years old, four, and we're beginning to become aware of there's outside of us, and 5 and 6 years old, we begin to really see others. And then we go to kindergarten, and then we see that there are other kids like us, and we start comparing ourselves. Very soon into that place, we're beginning to be fed the idea that to be happy is to have a car and to have a house and to have a boat and to have this and the other. And that's where it all really starts beginning to really go south, because you're really not paying attention to the fact that happiness has nothing to do with having a car or not, or what kind of a car you have. Uh, and you can soon find out when you buy that new car that you thought is going to make you happy. You find out in the first time you scratch it, which is like a week later, or you bump it, and then your whole happiness is gone. And then you have a car that you really don't want, and it's scratched, or it's this, or it's this, the other. So basically, there's two things to say here. Is like one of the things that I've learned, to my big surprise, that shamans talk about is the power of nature. And people say, oh, what are the shamans? They have superpowers. And as if there's any superpower they have, is the power of affection and is the power of love for nature. So one thing that happened to us is like when you're born, most of us, so many of us are born in cities, we don't realize that that's not exactly life. Life is in nature, like we're natural beings. And the biggest thing that we forget is that we're mammals. In the Dark Ages, in the Middle Ages, we separated ourselves from the mammals. And some of these people from the Spanish Inquisition or from the church said, humans are the favorite creation of God. Humans are the favorite creation of God. Like if I were God, the jaguar wouldn't be my favorite creation, or a condor, or a flying eagle, or a moray eel, or a whale swimming 2 miles underwater. It's just like, so we have a moment here where in the Dark Ages, in the darkest part of time, humans decide that they want to take over. That they take over, that this is for us. So if God is the human, my question would be, if humans are the favorite creation of God, well, what if he would come here, today and say, hey, what did you do with the home I gave you? And look at the planet. Look at what's happening to the planet. So when people talk to me about shamans, the shamans are ecologists. The shamans are earth lovers. They love this planet. And they realize that having your feet in a stream, or walking on the beach, or being on a mountain, or being in the woods and walking, or meditating in a cave, or whatever you want, being in a field collecting flowers, that's life. That's where it's all at. Cars that pollute and cars that can only, they're never good enough. I see people with we see they're only better cars and faster cars and more expensive cars, and all those people who give their money thinking they'll find happiness in that material realm. And I'm not against the material realm. I totally love the material realm, and there's a place for everything. But the frame of mind is if you bet your happiness on having a Mercedes Benz, I can tell you will be sad the next day because someone's going to come with a Ferrari and you're going to feel like nothing.
There's
We
always
don't.
somebody bigger, stronger, smarter, better.
Absolutely, absolutely. We sail here in the Greek islands and we look and there are these yachts and there's this yacht that costs $10 million. And right next to it, there's one that costs 20. And then 5 minutes later enters one that costs 50. And I look at these guys and they're all like dropping and dropping. And it's just like, you cannot get happiness out of that. Plus, we can hit it on a
Well,
rocket.
they're again drawn by a comparison, the keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, which is like hollow, empty, and not real.
Yep. Your neighbor comes home with a Mercedes, you need a Mercedes, you know. They don't know that, you've given up, lunch meat for the rest of your life to pay for it, you know.
And
Uh,
that's what we're talking about, that we're being put in a rat race and everyone's running after this happiness that is just absolutely not true. Happiness lies in, I was in this village in Pisac in Peru, and out of this path from the mountain, I knew there was some houses back up there, some huts up in the mountain.
Leave a message
And
after the tone.
out of this path comes this guy with his mule. He was on his mule, and I had not seen a more confident man, a more happy, a more complete man. It was like, I've never driven my BMW with that kind of confidence. Like, that's where it's at. I looked at it and I'm like, go, guy, you go. That's what it's about. It's about feeling good inside you, about what you are and what do you bring to the world, not what you've taken to the world. That's the big thing that we turn the tables and we're about taking. What can I have and what can I have? And I have this and I have the other. But real happiness is in what can I offer? Because in the what can I have, it's endless. You're always like, oh, well, I need something more, and I need something more. And you're always poor. You're always poor. It doesn't matter if you have 10 million or 100 million in your bank or a billion now that we've gone to this place of insanity of internet money, accidentally billionaires.
well,
Now,
I love this talk. What can I put into the world? What can I bring to the world around me, the extended world around that is of value and comes from uh, something that's, shall we say, important to me. And
absolutely. It's like, what can I offer? And maybe it's not, it's like, what can I bring to the world and what can I offer to those around me? To the world itself and to those who are around me. And it could be my wife, it could be my son, it could be a neighbor. It's like showing up somewhere and then saying, instead of saying, what is in it for me, saying, hey guys, hi, how can I help? And you'd be like, oh, you could cut the grass, you could prune the bush, you could do the dishes, or you could help the poor, you could give $10, or you could work and offer something. Like there's just so much. That is abundance.
well,
That's
and yet
abundance.
there are other ways. I mean, I understand,
A million ways.
altruism and philanthropy, but besides that, in my work, in what I do, like, and let's focus on your work, what you do. You're making a living off of these tours and cruises, but what you're really doing is providing a means for people to uh, develop spiritually,
Absolutely.
and you're giving them an initiation, a potent initiation into a new way of reframing the world. You're not necessarily proclaiming the snake oil that it will cure a disease, but certainly the interconnection with the body becomes very, very strong. And we realize that both mind and body, or soul and body, um, have a spiritual source, but soul and body are not on two separate planes. They're on the same plane. They're the expression of the same thing, say at different ends of the spectrum. And So as you go into the soul, the body adjusts. As you go into the body, the soul adjusts. Think of, I think of a grimy situation like, the old chimney sweeps in England. Their souls were becoming as destroyed and decimated as was their bodies from, climbing into those chimneys. So they became weaker and smaller. So rising into the world, at least has to bring you to some point where you're capable of putting something into it. And today, what an awesome possibility, because even, the working class guy can pull out his phone and do a podcast, can put out an idea, can have a thought and record it. Camus says even a prisoner in jail can find absolute freedom.
Absolutely. That's what we're
Mm.
talking about. And I love what
So
you say. You're so right. You're so right on, Paul.
yeah,
It
so
was
I love your
also
Gnostic insights. I think that they're quite healing, and yet they also bring out a gnosis that flows through genius. Your genius is that you've discovered all this, that you're eloquent and articulate on representing it to other people, and people are going home with a smile on their face. You gave them more than just a good time. So, with that, I want to say, hey, thanks for being on the program. Really appreciate having you.
thank you, Paul. Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, it was a great discussion. I want to put your links in our description as well, besides the donate link. Everybody, again, the donate link is there. If you just take a moment right now and make a donation, we'd really appreciate it. Um, just real quick, a summary of your work. What's in your near future?
Well, what we're doing now with the Jaguar Path is we're offering a intensive training on February 7th to 14th here in Greece, right in front of the Temple of Hippocrates, where our house is, where I'm talking from. And this is a week, 7 days of revolution, really just looking into these tools and understanding what Hippocrates says and what the shamans say, which is about the same. Looking deeper into your heart, what you really desire, and taking a moment to look with us, what are those things that you feel are holding you back so we could help you learn these tools so you can remove all those things yourself to huh, to be free and to allow your authentic self to shine forward.
That's wonderful. So, once again, just thanks so much for being here. And hopefully, we'll hear from you again and we'll continue to follow up with this. With that, I'll say to our congregational network, thanks for watching and listening. And we hope you enjoyed our podcast.